It's amazing what you can buy ready to run for model railways, especially in 00 gauge these days. You would think that you can get any loco you possibly want pretty much straight out of a box and put it on your layout, but it's not true. Here is a little selection of locomotives from my kit collection, and none of these are available ready to run. Starting from this end, we've got a little Planet industrial diesel. This is from Non-Imenstra kits. It's a white metal kit. BR class 06 diesel, that's from Judith Edge. Now I know Hornby do a BR class 06, but let's be honest, it was adjusted to fit the chassis that they already had. So it's an interesting model, especially when you put it next to a scale one. We've got a crane tank here from Southeastern Finecast and an Lms Dock Tank from Mercian Models. All these kits have been around a while, and there's no prospect immediately of being able to buy any of them ready to run. Which means that if you're looking for a very specific model, you may find yourself rooting around on second-hand stalls or online auctions looking at second-hand built kits. You know, if you don't fancy having a go at building your own kits, there's certainly an opportunity to buy kits other people have bought. You'll find online auctions are absolutely chock full of these things. But what should you be looking for if you're looking to buy a second-hand kit-built loco? After all, we know what you're looking for if you're buying a second-hand ready-to-run loco, because it's essentially what Mr. Hornby or Mr. Bachmann or Mr. Daypole put in the box. Here, you've got a lot of other considerations, like did they make a halfway decent job of it when they're putting the thing together? So, what should we be thinking of? Well, the first and most obvious thing to think about is, does the model look like the prototype? And you will have quite a lot of thinking to do here. The two areas. First of all, does it look like the prototype in the sense of, are all the bits in the right place? Are they all about the right size and shape? For example, you know, this shunter looks like the prototype because the bonnet is the right width, the cab is the right size, the whole thing is the right length, which, you know, the Hornby railroad cheapy model isn't. Now, I mean, no criticism of that. It's designed to do a very particular job. But this is a scale model, and if I want to sit the scale model with other scale models, it's obviously the better choice. So I can assess this, and for that, it helps if you've looked at lots of prototype photos and got a feel for, is it the right shape? Now, just because something is a kit does not mean that it is super accurate. In the old days, and by the old days I do mean the sort of 1960s and 70s, it wasn't uncommon for kits to be designed to fit ready-to-run chassis. We still get kits to fit ready-to-run chassis. The difference is the chassis is about the right length. In the very old days, certainly a lot of kits were designed to fit something like a Triang Ginty chassis, whether it was the right length or not. So you need to look at the loco with a slightly jaundiced eye and say, well, does it look right? Now, most will do. Kit manufacture tends to be small scale production by people who really, really care about the prototype and the loco they're looking at. So they will generally try and do a good job. The next question you then have to ask is, if it looks about if the proportions are about right and the sizes appear to be right, has the person who's built it done a halfway decent job of assembling it? This, for example, is a fairly complex kit. You've got all these waggly bits under here, and I built this relatively early in my kit building career, and it is not the easiest kit in the world to build. I've actually built this thing 3 times. This is the first one I built. I built 2 for other people, and my skill levels improved enormously over time. So with this one, the boiler comes as a flat sheet, and when I built this loco, I did not have the skills to roll the boiler properly and make a nice job of it. So I cheated. I got myself a bit of brass tube that was about the right size, and then rolled plastic card around it several times to build it up to the right diameter for the boiler. The cab on this one, it's got a plastic wrapper on it because I couldn't bend the extra wrapper properly and do a nice job. Now, under the paint, you can't tell, and I'm still very happy with this model. It's very nice. But Obviously different skill levels will come into it when you start looking at a second-hand loco. Look at all the joints. Are they nice and neat? Are they square? Tony Wright is always banging on about keeping things absolutely square when you're building a model, and he's bang on, because if all the bits are square to each other, the model will just look a lot better. Then let's assume it is all right, and you look at it and think, that's a nice model, it'll fit my layout beautifully. You need to consider, is it going to work? Now, again, modern ready to run has spoiled us. When I take a Hornby Peckett out of the track and out of the box, put it on the track, it'll crawl away beautifully, walking pace. As somebody who's built a lot of kit-built chassis and really struggled to get them anything like as good as that, I find that intensely annoying. But hey, that's my problem. If you're buying a second-hand kit-built locomotive, there is no guarantee it is going to work super-duper smoothly. You might get lucky and get one that's smooth as anything. You might get one that lumps down the track like I don't know, a three-legged donkey or any horse I've ever backed in a horse race. And so it is very often really worth seeing if you can see that locomotive run. Don't be told, oh, it'll run in. It won't. Frequently, if it's running rubbish, it's going to stay running rubbish until you actually do some work on it. First thing to check really is, does it sit flat on a sheet of glass? And here I've got a little mirror, and all I do is plonk my locomotive on there and poke at the corners, wobble it around a bit. Are all four wheels touching the glass? If they are, then there's a good chance that this loco is going to work, because the builder has been skilled enough to put the locomotive together nice and square. Not all locomotive kits are created equal. Most of the time nowadays the chassis were made of etched brass or etched nickel silver. In the good old days they could be made of white metal, which is a lot softer, and white metal can twist. And so you end up with one wheel high and doesn't sit on the glass, and that means the locomotive rocks when it's on the track. And if it's rocking and one of the wheels is in the air, that wheel definitely isn't picking up electricity. The good news is a twisted white metal chassis often isn't the end of the world. You can sometimes take it out, twist it between your fingers to put it back the other way, but no guarantees. So again, bear that in mind when you're looking at buying the locomotive. Then look at the pickups underneath. Now, the pickups, let's use that one as an example. I hate putting pickups. It's a fiddly job on locomotives, but you do need them. And you'll see that I've got very fine phosphor bronze wires touching the backs of the wheels, but only on one side, because on these I've used Romford wheels, and you can buy them in insulated and uninsulated. So what I've done is I've used uninsulated ones down this side, and that means the whole chassis is live. The insulated ones are insulated from the chassis, so there's no short circuit, and the pickup wires are soldered to bits of Paxolin and wired into the motor. This can make things entertaining if you've got a live chassis and a live body, because if one of those wires gets loose and touches the side of the body, then there'll be a spark and the thing won't run properly. It is worth looking to see how these have been attached. It's also worth looking to see how many of them there are. We assume in the modern ready to run that the locomotive has got pickups on all the wheels. No guarantee with that on a kit, depending on how it's going to run, and also how keen and enthusiastic the builder is. It depends on how many pickups they actually bother putting on. As I say, everyone is different. Finally, if you can, it is worth having a look inside. Now, ready-to-run locomotives all come apart in different ways, but generally most kit-built locomotives will have a screw at either end of the chassis, and if they're nice people, they'll put a little blob of blue tack in the screw head, so that it makes it really easy to hang on to the thing when you're unscrewing it. Now, obviously, this is going to depend. This is only going to work if you can actually see the physical loco. And do ask before you start taking locomotives apart on people's trade stands. They are quite reasonably going to say, please don't do that very much. And then it's a little bit of a wiggle to get this out. But there you are. There's the chassis from the 06 diesel. And it's a pretty standard chassis, this one. We have a motor with a great big piece of insulating tape on the top because, as I said, the body is live. And so I don't want that top contact on the motor touching the inside of the body. And then we've got a gearbox. Now, again, you don't always have to have a gearbox, but you do have to have gears and meshing them. When I build them, I always put gearboxes in things because it doesn't cost a lot of money and it makes my life a lot easier. And it's working on one axle there. And basically, that's how it will come out. Now, again, if you can see the inside of the loco, scrutinise it because you can see, has this been put together nice and neatly? This is an etched brass kit, and hopefully you can see that the soldered joints are reasonably tidy. Because if you've got nice, neat soldered joints, it would indicate that the builder's relatively skilled, and then you can have a lot more confidence in the locomotive. If you see lumps of solder and really horrible furry stuff going on underneath there, then again, less skilled builder, there may be more trouble ahead for you if you buy the locomotive. So, you know, you do need to scrutinise the model that you're looking at. But ultimately, second-hand kit-built locos are available. There are often some real bargains out there. And the other thing to bear in mind is it's a kit. That means somebody has put it together, and the chances are, if it can be put together, there's a reasonable chance, certainly, of the worst bits can be taken apart again. So, more of a problem with etched brass kits because you've got a lot of solder going on, but if you don't mind damaging the paint finish, and if you need to do a serious alteration, you'll just have to live with that. You can often unsolder bits. If you've got a white metal kit, it could be, if it's been soldered together, actually low melt solder will melt surprisingly easily with either hot water or actually I've melted low melt solder with a hairdryer when I'm trying to dry a locomotive off while spraying it, so they can come apart. And finally, with white metal kits such as this one, you will find people will super glue them together and or epoxy glue them together. Very often, some paint stripper, some proper serious paint stripper, the stuff that doesn't do plastic any favours, will take the glue joints apart and you can reduce them back to a kit, or at least take off the bits that are giving you problems. Wonky chimneys, for example. A wonky chimney can really ruin the look of a steam locomotive, but if it's super glued on, you can waggle it like a small child waggles their wobbly tooth, hoping for the tooth fairy, and it'll come off and you can glue it back on again. Oh, don't be scared of super glue, by the way. This locomotive is at least 25 years old. It's super glued together, and you know what? Still as good as the day I built it. So there we have it. There are lots of opportunities out there to get unusual locomotives. You will have to search and you will have to be fairly critical of the model you're looking at, but a second-hand kit-built loco can be a great way of increasing your locomotive stud.